Let's call this meeting to order. This is our public hearing for the property condemnation Ware County Board of Commissioners, Monday, June 27th, 22 at 6 o'clock. Let's do a roll call first. Mr. Burris.
Present.
Mr. Pope. He's out. Mr. Lucas.
Present.
Mr. Barnard.
Present.
Cheers here. All right. On our agenda is a property condemnation for the Jamestown subdivision access road. And the summary of it is pursuant to the OCGA 22-110, the Ware County Board of Commissioners must hold a public hearing on the proposed property condemnation for the Jamestown subdivision access road. There are two tracts of property need to construct an access road to connect Tanner Lane and Winclay Drive. Tract 1 consists of 0.45 acres and tract 2 consists of 0.99 acres. Now, do we have any comments from the public on
opposition
on this thing? Do we have any oppositions on it? On either track? None of them are here?
I don't believe so. No, sir. That's what I was just thinking.
No, I don't see anybody, Scott.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't have any, we got support. We got plenty of support. No opposition. Y'all win.
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of procedure, the public hearing portion is required by the statute just so that, anyone wishing to speak for or against can be heard. And so now we've had the opportunity to see there's a number of folks present that, wish to speak for it. My recommendation is maybe if they would like to choose one representative, just so that we can articulate for the record that there was a group here to speak for it. And then we'll make sure that's reflected in the minutes of the public hearing. And then after that time, we'll simply close the public hearing and open our called meeting and take a vote.
Okay. All right. Does any one of y'all want to come up and
Greg
speak
Stevenson.
on behalf of for it?
Yeah.
Explain to the
Mayor James.
why the need of it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Stevenson. I'm at 3829 Beanie Street, Waycross. A lot of these people here are because of the problem we've had in the Jamestown area. We've had emergencies where people couldn't get to the hospital. It's the reason we asked for this road. And it's just mainly we need a way in and out in case of emergencies and where fire trucks can get to us or ambulances can get to us. We've had problems where ambulances couldn't get in and then couldn't get back out. And I think this is something that we've all been looking forward to. And we appreciate y'all trying to get this done for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for it that want to speak? If not, nobody against it. Okay. Commissioner's comment.
I would like to say this project's been going on for 6 years now.
Yeah.
And this is the last hurdle for us to deal with. I've instructed our county manager once we get this settled tonight, next week, go ahead and send the bids out. Let's get this thing on the construction phase of it started.
Yeah, we got it planned right here. Little review. Got it ready.
Good deal.
It's gonna be going out for bid pretty short.
Hopefully next week.
Okay.
We need to come up with a name on that bridge. Is that
Stever to the bridge.
Greg Stevens?
Okay.
Sir?
What I tell you the name of the bridge is gonna be?
Something about some Johns or something like that. What was that you told me? I can't remember what it was, but you mentioned to me about a name on it.
The name
I,
on-
I, Mr. County Manager, if I could say something, with no pun intended here. The gentleman that used to sit in this seat up here was a dear friend of mine, Burton Carter. And this was known as Burton Carter's baby, and that's what everybody called this bridge, was Burton Carter baby. So if any way at all we could call this Carter Bridge or Burton Carter Bridge or something like that, I think that'd be a wonderful thing. Cause that man worked hard to get this bridge finished.
I agree.
One of the things I want to mention is, and I echo those remarks, from Commissioner Carter. I miss him. He was a fireball,
Yes,
so
he
to
was.
speak. And Commissioner Barnard. I mean, they both in tandem
Right.
pushed and pushed and pushed, and that's what they're there for. So I just commend the commission and Commissioner Barnard and also Commissioner Carter too. So he wanted to see it get done. That was the two.
They both
that,
did.
The two that are in the development as far as this one's coming, to fruition. But also the State Street overpass was another one that he kept pushing too.
Right.
So, but anyway,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. If I might say, there's a song, there used to be a song, is a song, says it's been a long, long time coming. And when I come on the commission about 2 years ago, this was pretty much in the transition phase of it. And like saying, what happened was that, just for a little short, brief history, the CSX had pretty much agreed to give right of way and to run the bridge that way, and so everything was fine. But then at the 11th hour, they decided they didn't want to do that. So then we had to try to go to a plan B. And my thing, even though this is not in my district, but I still sit on this kind of commission, so every district is important to me. And so I could see the need, and I see the need. I rode out there in Jamestown, and the only way you can get out there for train blocking is you get out a helicopter, pole vault stick, and jump over the boxcar or something like that. But and I look at it from a standpoint, not so much of a convenience, but safety standpoint, because you have a lot of people have already had 2 incidents out there, I think, where ambulance got in, couldn't get out, or vice versa, couldn't get in there whenever someone was sick, and it could be one of our loved ones. We never know. So this is what I promoted when people asked me about it and didn't think we should do it and all. I said, well, this is really an access road or emergency out or whatever for these people to get out of there. And you put yourself in their position. If you were in there and had someone that house on fire, whatever, you couldn't get to it, that would be bad. So I think it's a great thing that this commission, even we didn't just drop the ball whenever CSX said we couldn't do it. We had to go to an alternative method to do it. And like Commissioner Lucas said, Commissioner Carter, when I come on, like I say, we were in the deep throes of this, and he worked real hard for it. And I think it would be both proper and fitting. At least his name is on that bridge somewhere. And then, like I say, Commissioner Barnard.
I don't want my name on it.
Well, I just
Somebody put graffiti all over it.
strike that from the record. But again, like I say, I think the people that stay in that area, I think this is something that's coming. And like I say, hopefully, I don't know, Brandon, can you just give a guesstimate if from this point right now, what are we looking at?
Well, the commissioner desires for it to go out to bid next week, 30 days to advertise, and then take the bids, from the close of the bid opening, and we present those bid results at the next commission meeting to follow, and then you go into, executing the contract and the bid, performance bonds, payment performance bonds, and that takes a little bit of time, 60 days maybe or so after the, collection of the bids. I mean, start of the bid advertisement, 60 days or so before you have contracts in hand and ready to start with construction.
So that's what I'm saying, a guesstimate of how long from that time to when they can be driving over the bridge.
Oh, I think it's probably a 270-day contract, maybe. That's what I saw on there.
Okay.
You got 270. Okay,
So if you take into account all this other stuff, we talking about close to maybe a year.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Maybe this time next year, we'll be able to drive across the bridge.
okay. I think that'll be wonderful.
we're good.
Okay, but that's all I have, and I'm just glad we getting this behind us.
Yeah, I'm glad it's coming off, cause I've done everything I could. I mean, you know, I've been for it and hoping for all of y'all to get this thing through. You know,
But I just
see
hope
some need.
Jamestown's ready for the heavy traffic count that y'all gonna be getting. Cause if you got somebody probably working at the hospital or around that general area, they gonna cut through, they're going home every day to keep having to go down State Street and get stopped by a train. And we're going in the morning, people's gonna cut right through there. So y'all be ready.
And I think too, to add to that, I think some of the concerns for the people that were kind of against it was that, you know, people using that bridge and, you know, four-wheelers and all this kind of stuff, but it kind of has a sheriff department, and we can do what it takes to kind of handle that, you know, to keep that in check, so, you know.
I may say something, I live one road off a block from Everfield Methodist Church, right there off of Ware Street. When that train's blocked there it's been 2 or 3 hours. On our little street, we have semis coming down our paved road, semis now off of Waring Street. Then we have Union Street, they'll go around our road, around Union Street, 2 roads off of a main road, trying to look for a damn lane out. And that's how pathetic it is, somebody trying to find a way out of a maze. So they're gonna deal with what we've been dealing with for several years. So welcome to the world of white crops. That's what it is. And they've told us at the meetings we've had, when we get that overpass, that the railroad's already wanting to bring in more trains through White Cross. It's gonna be much worse than what it is now.
We try to do all we can to alleviate as much suffering as we can,
I know,
and,
we've got double traffic
yeah,
there, they
right.
want more trains in, so it's gonna get worse.
that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Anybody from the audience? Could,
Mr. Chairman, I think,
manager, you get anything on it?
I don't, no, sir.
Okay,
So we need
Jennifer,
so I was just gonna say, we'll take a motion to close the public hearing, and then we'll open the called meeting, and then we'll be ready to take the vote on the resolution.
okay,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we close our public hearing.
okay, we got a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Got any discussion on it? If not, let's vote on it. Mr. Burris,
Aye.
Mr. Pope, Mr. Lucas,
Aye.
Mr. Barner. Chair votes aye. Okay. Now, if you hear a motion to adjourn,
I give a motion, we adjourn. So we
Well, that was the
We just did
motion to
that.
adjourn.
we closed it here.
Yeah.
It was closed. And we adjourn. We just closed it here.
Yeah, we
didn't
just closed the public hearing.
Yeah, we closed the public hearing, and I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. How much do we need between the time? Can we call
the
the
way-
meeting right now?
Yes, you can
start-
open up the call
okay.
meeting.
We're gonna go right on into the call meeting on, immediately following the public hearing, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. We haven't done a roll call, that'll be all right.
Yeah.
Let's do, I'm gonna ask Mr. Burris if he would lead us in prayer before we start the meeting.
Bow our heads in prayer. Father God, we thank you, O Lord, for this day. We pray, God, that you will bless us, Lord, as we go into this next meeting, O God. We thank you and praise you, O God, for giving us wisdom and knowledge to make the right decision on behalf of the citizens of this county. And we pray, God, that you would just bless the inhabitants of this county and this city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We need to approve the agenda.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, I've asked, the county attorney to, present this resolution to officially, act on the condemnations.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, as the commission's aware, we just had a public hearing to hear anyone to speak for or against the two proposed condemnations. And so now you have before you Resolution 2022-07, and it references both the tracts that were just discussed in the public hearing, and it basically outlines the condemnation and gives the authority for the county to move forward with filing condemnations on these two tracts, employing appraisers, surveyors, or anybody else to assist in the proceedings, and that you're authorized to expend funds for that purpose, and then also just authorized to sign any documents necessary to move forward with that process.
okay.
So we'll just need a motion to
Motion
approve
this
the resolution, and that'll be all that's needed.
Okay. I hear a motion to approve this resolution.
So move, Mr. Chair.
So move. I second it.
Second. Okay, any discussion on it? Anything
just-
y'all need to know? You got anything?
Let me get this phone off first. Okay, Madam Attorney, just for the record, on this condemnation, if we call it, eminent domain, whatever we want. And in consultation with the, county engineer, pretty much we were left with no other option but to do this, right?
That's correct. Condemnation is certainly a final step from a government standpoint. They explore all the different options as far as, what would be best for a project, and look into those different options, and also numerous letters go out to the property owners as far as the appraised value of their property, and these two only are the ones that were unable to be resolved in any other way, and therefore to not allow the project to be held up and not completed, this is the last and final step. And I do want the commission to understand that once the condemnation is filed, the paperwork is actually filed with the court. At that time, under Georgia law, Ware County takes ownership of that property. So therefore, the project can move forward, while at the same time, we may still be litigating the condemnation itself. The project can move forward. And Georgia law is, I think, intentionally written that way so that one property owner could not hold up the entirety of a project.
Another thing too, in conjunction with that, is that we have already had an appraisal to go out and appraise the property. And, I think pretty much under the law, it also states that if they don't accept our appraisal, they can get their own appraisal. And then those two appraisals try to have a happy medium there or something. So, it's not like we just go in there and say, well, hey, we just condemning the property, but we offered, what the appraised price was, and, I guess right now they rejected it.
That's
But,
correct.
That's correct.
like I say, to move the project forward, we just still go on with the condemnation procedure. And, I really hate it have to come to this, but, this is for the good of all.
I understand.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I'd like to ask one question on that. When you, nobody opposed it, that don't clear it from condemnation. It still has to be
Well,
condemned, or
that's correct. So
when we didn't have it.
the public hearing itself is only to allow the commissioners to receive feedback from the public. So honestly, even if there had been 100 people up here to oppose it, you all could have still made the decision, despite whatever was said, to condemn it. So all that does is allow you all to get feedback. We cannot not move forward with the condemnation unless we have all the documents executed by the legal owners of the property, which we do not. So therefore, we're left with that.
so we still
that
gotta
choice.
go through
That's
that.
right.
Okay, that clears that up.
Okay, Mr. Rainwater just came in. He wasn't here when we had our public hearing. Do we need to let him make a comment?
That's up to the commission at this point. So Mr. Rainwater, earlier at 6 o'clock, we did have a public hearing where we allowed anyone in the public to speak for or against the proposed condemnations for, I believe, your property and Mr. Tanner's property, Mr. and Mrs. Tanner, I suppose. And then, we've now closed that public hearing and moved on. We're in the meeting, to take a vote on the resolution to condemn. If the board is willing at this point, we can, allow to hear from Mr. Rainwater if you all have anything you'd like to say to the commission before the vote's taken.
Well,
But if you don't mind, will you step to the podium and just state your name and, address for the record, just for the minutes.
okay, John Scott Rainwater, the owner of 3642 Tanner Lane, here in Waycross. I've spoken with Steve a couple of occasions and some other people through emails, so I don't know if I have anything new to say, other than I think the meetings I've been to prior, where all the people in the community were involved and asking what they thought was the best way to go. It was always something different than what's being done. And so that seems odd to me when there's 150 people at Jamestown Baptist Church and somebody says you like A, B, or C, and 90% say A and 10% say C, and one or two people say B, and it ends up being B is what's selected. It feels a little bit like the easy button being hit. And I'm not sure that, and you guys have done the studies on it, so that's a lot more than good information that I have. But I have seen what that creek does, and I just don't know that there won't be some long-term problems in trying to build a road across it right there. But, the biggest thing for me is I live at the end of a dead-end dirt road for a reason. I bought that place to live at the end of a dead-end dirt road. I didn't buy it to live on a thoroughfare, and I don't think anybody here would be fooling themselves if they don't think that that's going to be one of those major little cut-through accesses to get to everywhere in this town. Because if you're coming up Jamestown, why would you even worry about the Waycona School crossing or if there was a train up there or not? If you come by Jamestown and there's not a train there, why wouldn't you drop down through there and get on the other side of the tracks, on this side of the creek, and going to the hospital and going to anything and everything, going to Blackshear? It's what that's going to be. And I know that some people, I think Steve even said to me at one time, well, traffic probably won't be anything there unless the train breaks down and blocks Jamestown. I think I got $117 in my pocket right now, and I bet you all of it that is not the way that's going to end up being. There's going to be zoom, zoom, zoom all day, every day, because I wouldn't do it. Right? I wouldn't ride all the way up to Waycona and take a chance if there's a train and there's school there every morning and every afternoon when I can get on and cross the tracks and get to that side of town wherever I'm going. And I didn't really want to live next to that. So to give me $7,500 for the acre that you guys need to put that road through there, the place won't be worth a penny to me when the road's there. So I just how I am. I know there ain't much I can do about it, but I felt like I would at least come up here and take this opportunity to complain out loud about it. I offered to sell the whole place to y'all so I could just leave. And but anyway, that's what I got to say. I don't think that's the best way to get across that creek. Everybody and their brother that you talk to thinks what makes the most sense is ABC Avenue, parallel down the railroad tracks across the creek, whatever. I don't know all, I'm not from here, so I don't know all the little what you got to do to make that happen, this, that, and the other. But I know I've been to 2 or 3 different meetings with a big crowd of people, and what's happened, the road going through my property has never been anywhere near the most popular way to get across Kettle Creek. Matter of fact, it's always been the least popular. So, but that's what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome to stay. Yeah, no. And it may be, and I don't know if we'd like to do this just very briefly, because there was some discussion earlier. I know there were different options explored that ultimately had to be discarded because of CSX, and so I'm not sure if that's what he was referencing or not. But Mr. Chairman, if you want to allow one of the commissioners with the historic knowledge or the county manager, I think it might be worth taking 2 minutes to go over that.
I may
I
have to
think
ask
Steve
Brandon if he can
mentioned that
remember, but.
about that
Yeah.
road traffic through there, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had, gosh, back in, 17, was it, 2017, we had, Moreland Altabelli to do a feasibility study, and they presented some options. Actually, I think there was 4, wasn't there, A through D, or was it A through C? I couldn't remember, it's been so long ago. And one was an overpass. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, one was overpass, and then the other one was to build, the option, build the road within the right of way, connect ABC. Is that one of them? Make sure I'm telling this correctly. There was also another option of further north, and I can't remember if that was an underpass or overpass or whatever that was. I don't remember. It was another overpass, yeah, further north, and then also the option that where we are right now is one further down, but I think it was to go further out at the end of Blaylock. It's been a long time since I've seen that feasibility study, which was further out, and because of the environmental impact and the cost of having to travel further through that wetlands area, I believe that was discarded. And so I think that was the options. Now, the option of going down ABC or along the railroad tracks, parallel the railroad tracks and go parallel to the trestle, there was issues there with, there's a lift station that was there, and then also too, as I think, I believe Commissioner Burst mentioned, we moved forward with that plan all the way to almost to the very, very end. And we were planning, the county was planning on doing whatever we had to do with the lift station and mitigate all that. And then there toward the end, we met or had a conference call with CSX. I believe it was on the phone. And they basically said, we prefer you not to do it with using this option. Right. Basically, they were saying, we're not going to allow it because it was all within their right of way. And another issue too that was going to be added to that, the north portion, we had it in two segments. This is the southern portion we're talking about. The northern portion was going to be within the right of way of CSX, and they were going to charge the county $350,000 just in a sense to review and critique our plans. That wasn't one, that doesn't count inspectors or someone there on site, flagmen and those kind of things. That was an additional. So we figured if it's $350 for that segment, which wasn't even near a trestle or it was just within the right of way, then we knew that one on the southern end was probably going to be at least 3 to 4 times that amount because of the impact and the quantity and the magnitude of what we were going to try to do.
There was one parcel, and they wanted us to build some type of retaining wall or something other, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, that was part of
another $1.5 million or
yes,
something like that. We was going to fork out on that.
Yes, sir. It was a very expensive option to do that, and beyond that, and I think the commission at the time was, well, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. But I think what really sealed it was when CSX says, we prefer you not being there. And that's kind of how they laid it out. It was, they didn't really want to talk about it. It was kind of like, well, we looked at this and we think that someone else higher up started getting involved and looking and going, we don't need this. So
I think the price tag jumped up over $5 or $6 million, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. It was with everything that we would have to do with the retaining wall and all that. It was very expensive.
Well, do we still have to cross that Second Creek there at Kirkland's Lake? I mean, for those other people to get across?
Later on, we're going to have to do work there.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put a road there, ain't we?
For the area that's north of there.
Right.
Jordan Drive.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was going to all be in the same.
We had it in 2 segments, and this segment was we were going to try to do them in tandem, but at that point when they started throwing us out of the right of way, then we started having to figure out where we could put that with additional or by right of way to build the new road on.
Okay, this would be just to be the south part.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think also, Scott, CSX like I say, they basically told us in a nice way they didn't want us on the right of way, and also that they were gonna do some future tracking, double tracking on down there. And
Yes, sir.
so that was pretty much the rationale they used for it.
Yeah, that came as it started being looked at and reviewed and meetings started happening, then they started disclosing that, you know, they didn't really want it close to that trestle because they're not sure what exactly would be taking
Right.
place there with their right of way, and so it made it very shaky at that point.
And, you know, and I appreciate, you know, Mr. Rainwater coming in, his concern. I've been on here about a couple of years now, and when I got on, as I said, this was pretty much a heated topic, and everything was going CSX, then it changed. And that's one of the things that I told the manager and the county engineer, if there's any way that we can do it without having to do this, I would hope we could do that. But they've looked at everything, and, you know, unfortunately, this is the last option that we had to do it. And I know it's not anything that maybe make you feel any better, but this is something, and this is why the law allows for that if it have to come to that. But this, as the attorney said, this is a last resort when you have to do condemnation and, you know, basically get a person's property to move a project along. So I hope y'all can understand that. You know, okay. Well, anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
All right.
Any more comments from? I guess we'll go on.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion and a second on the resolution.
On the
to approve.
resolution,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, let's take a vote on it. Mr. Burris,
Aye.
Mr. Pope, he ain't here. Mr. Lucas,
Aye.
Mr. Barner,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Is that all? Do we have any discussion on, he was wanting to bring up something?
Yes, I'd like to, bring up our lost tax a little bit while we got the commission together, see if we can come up with something other to present to the city to get this thing over with. Thank y'all for coming. Mr. County Manager, you wanna tell us where we at on it?
We've had 4 meetings. I'm trying to remember exactly. 4 lost negotiation meetings with the city of Waycross, and that is to negotiate the percentage split of the local option sales tax, and that's for a 10-year period. These things are negotiated after we receive the census, and that dictates that we have to go back and negotiate for that split to be divided up for a 10-year period. And the county started out with a proposal, and the city came back and responded to that. And when it all at the very end, the county's proposal was to split the proceeds, the lost proceeds, 58% for the county and 42% for the city. And so that's where it stands now. Both sides would, or by the law, correct me if I get this wrong, Jennifer, but we're supposed to negotiate that for a solid 60 days or 60-day period, and then after that would start mediation to try to come to some agreement with that split. But right now the county still stands at 58% and the city at 42%. So I don't know if it's part of the agenda, if the county wants to act on that or take official action on it, but we would have to add it to the agenda by vote, if I'm not mistaken.
The city is at 5743. Is that where they were
I
at?
think that's what it was.
Yes, sir, they came
Was
back.
that where they were at?
Yes, sir. I believe they did come back and ask for 5743, and the county was at 5842.
1%.
Yes, sir.
And then,
Now, Mr. County Manager, Ms. Jennifer, can somebody clarify the legal aspect of this? What does the law say our percentage can be as the county?
Well, it's to be negotiated, and it's all left to be negotiated, pretty much. We have to, one of the things I did leave off, and I should have said that some arrangement, an agreement has to be made by the end of this year and a certificate turned into the Department of Revenue, or that 1 cent sales tax will go away. It'll stop. And, that tax is to provide a rollback in property taxes in and of itself. So that's what that is for.
Okay.
And that's roughly, countywide, the total amount per year is about $8 million that we would split.
How many meals is that, Scott?
What's that?
How many meals is that?
Oh, gosh. I don't remember right off. I did see, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
about like 3.5 meals or something.
That's what I was thinking to say about 5 million. Scott, if you don't mind, explain to our guests what the splosh tax is. Just completely different from the splosh tax.
Correct.
This is not.
Yeah.
Explain to them.
The SPLOST tax, and I may ask Jennifer to help me a little bit explain that, but typically that is a 1 cent sales tax. And that is for providing primarily for capital projects and capital equipment. We do share that if there's an arrangement or agreement with the city of Waycross, we do share that by an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Waycross. And if we have an agreement, that sales tax can go for 6 years. If we don't, then it only lasts for 5. But primarily the SPLOST is to be used for capital expenditures, capital equipment, capital projects, and those sort of things. And so with that, there's a lot of folks, I shouldn't say a lot of folks, there are some folks in the community who have voiced their opinion that, it would move the sales tax to 9 cents. Actually, that won't happen because our single county T-SPLOST ends next March, and if the SPLOST passes this coming November, it won't start until April. So actually, the sales tax will remain at 8% or 8%.
Okay, now explain to them what the loss tax is.
Loss tax primarily is just to roll back property taxes.
That's not it's not an individual tax that we collect. It's just
That's
something
correct.
other that
It's
is
the
paid off
money
the
that
sales
we
tax.
receive as a credit, if you will, for property taxpayers, and that's the intent of that
Right.
lost.
Okay.
So basically, just like Greg was saying, that if we didn't have the loss, if the millage rate was 15, it could be 20.
Correct. You'd have to, and to make that up, you
Right,
would
to
have
make
to
up
add
that
the millage.
loss.
Unless we
revenue.
cut the budget.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I mean, you can always do
Well,
that.
You'd have to trim somewhere.
you would have to, yes, sir.
Yeah.
You would,
I mean,
because that'd be a big increase.
Yeah.
So you would have to try to compromise that. So.
So the lost tax, we need it, and it's a good thing
Oh, yeah.
to keep the property taxes from being
Yes,
so
sir.
high. And I understand it on that point, If we didn't, then we'd have to raise taxes or either cut the budget. And, basically, I don't think we can cut the budget. Anything else?
Can we get a consensus of what the commission wants to look at on that loss tax? I mean, if we nail this thing down, that'd save us a bunch of money having to go through mediation. You're probably looking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 paying attorneys to mediate this thing.
Yeah.
If they can come up with something another 2% in the city, we can get this thing out of the way and move on with our lives.
I believe.
Well, could you go with a 0.5%?
Well, I think that was the last thing I heard was like 58.5.
57 and a half.
57 and a half.
57.5, 53.5.
43 and a half.
Yeah, 43 and a half, yes.
Yeah.
And my question was,
42 and a half.
I
Okay.
had talked with some commissioners, and they told me we couldn't do it this way, but I don't understand the legal aspect of it. If we could do a 0.5%, that we take a growth every year to get back up to our 60-40, you know, but let them have what they need initially to start with, and us take a 0.5% back until we build back up. You understand what I'm saying? Like they offered at the last negotiation. But can we legally do that, Jennifer?
I don't think we can.
Well, the problem is so we send in to the Department of Revenue whatever the city and the county agree on, and then, they process everything. And so I'm not sure they have it built in their system. And candidly, I've actually never had anybody ask that. This only comes up once every 10 years, so I learn something new every time I do it, which is only my second time, but hopefully I have a couple of more. So glad to look into that as an option if the commissioners are interested. I will say, though, that whatever decision is made by the city and county, it does not affect this year's budget or even next year's budget. It will be, right. So there is an ability already to plan or build in if either budget will be affected by it. But I think what I can say clearly to the commission is that Harrison Tillman, who this commission has hired to advise it and has, worked with Ware County for many years now, is very knowledgeable on not just, accounting in general, but specific to Lost, has given us a very detailed analysis of why he believes the split should be much higher than it is. So we do have the benefit of that. But I also understand there's many different considerations that go into a decision like this. And certainly that's what you gentlemen are here for, and certainly know you'll make the best one for the citizens of the community.
Okay.
Can we do that now if we agree on a split, on that 1 cent to split that one? Could we agree, if we agree on it, then we could let the city know? And
what I'd like to do is if we could just get a general consensus without a vote, and obviously we are missing one of our members tonight, and give that consensus, then come back when we actually have it in an advertised meeting, and that could be our next meeting, and publicly approve it when the city has also given their consensus. So without taking a formal vote on it tonight, if we could just get a consensus on
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what Steve's proposal was.
Especially with the member being missing as one that's on the negotiating team,
Yes, sir.
so I couldn't definitely vote on that unless
That's right.
Jerry was here. But right now, Steve, what we at 57?
57 and a half, ain't it?
No,
57.43 is where we at right now, ain't it?
All right, and if we
that's
said
where they at.
That's
We
where they at.
42.
We still at
58,
58.42.
We need 1 cent and to split that one.
That's why I would be interested in knowing, Ms. Jennifer, if we
Would you
could
consent to that?
do that 0.5% growth
And we can look.
to get us
Kinda
back.
half?
Let them have what they need at the beginning. Because, they are a government entity too, and they have, growing pains just like we do. And I know the county, we give a lot. It seems like we give more than we should sometimes. But I do understand their sympathy. I did work with them for many, many years. And, I definitely don't want to leave them out in the cold. I would be interested to see if we could legally do it that way. Because I think Commissioner Hopkins did bring that up. If we legally could do it that way, then at least give them 2 or 3 years to get up there.
well, and I feel you on that, Commissioner Lucas, but also going back to what our attorney said, really we should really be getting more than what we're getting now.
Mhm.
The county has a lot more things to deal with than what the city does. And I know I represent the city, but what I'm saying is that the county has a lot more
Got a lot more responsibility.
responsibilities, and we got to spread it out. So, we may just need a little bit more. So, 58.42, that's pretty much what we want. That's what we can compromise down from. What did y'all originally start out at?
I say send them 58.42, that's our lowest thing, and let it go. I
And
mean, that's what we pretty well told them the other day whenever we had the committee meeting, we went 58.42, that was our lowest. We started out at 60.40 and we came down to 58.
that's what I'm saying.
We was all locked in pretty, at 60.40, we wasn't gonna change when we walked into the meeting, but we did. But 58.42, I mean, I think fair enough.
You don't wanna go to the 57.5.
No, we need to stay out of the half business.
When does
My
that,
opinion.
when does the drop dead date as far as
They at 57.
on the loss before we have to go into arbitration?
So the law did change since the last time loss occurred. Under the old law, there was they had options of either mediation or what they called baseball arbitration, which was where you each side presented their offer. That has been declared unconstitutional by the courts. So now our two options are, after the 60 days of negotiations, which is what we're in currently, then we have the option to either go to mediation or non-binding arbitration. So mediation is when both sides present, you have a mediator, which is just a neutral third party who's unrelated to either side, to basically help the sides find an agreement. The mediator would not make a decision for you. The arbitrator, or non-binding arbitration, is more like a judge. They hear presentations by both sides, and then they make a ruling on, what their finding is. But the interesting thing with that is it's non-binding. So even if you have a finding, unless, both sides have agreed ahead of time, whatever the arbitrator says, we're going with that, it really is an exercise in futility if both sides don't honor that agreement. But what we do know is that we do not want to let the process stop without an agreement. So we've got to either find a solution within these 60 days or, my recommendation would be, at least contact a mediator at that time to get them on their calendar to get a few more, maybe a month or two, to continue negotiating if we don't have a solution, with a drop dead deadline of December 30th to, get the final agreement and document to the Department of Revenue. However, we certainly don't recommend that. Nobody wants to be dealing with this between Christmas and New Year's, if at all possible. So
when did the 60-day end as far as the,
Today, June 27th.
so it ended today?
Yes, sir. So after the 60 days, then you would start the.
And we have reached out to a mediator, and basically, I think the city's attorney and I are in agreement on the mediator that we would choose. We have reached out to him. He is willing to serve, so we believe that we have met that requirement. But that if we are not able to reach an agreement, we will actually get on his calendar for a scheduled mediation.
So
Okay.
we actually still got a couple months before they start mediation, correct? It's not costing us anything right now unless you have to,
Retain.
retainer, have to pay a retainer for the attorney. I don't know, I would think so.
There generally is probably a cancellation fee, but it's not a retainer in the sense of, pay $10,000. It would just be a cancellation.
Well, that's why I would
would
like
be.
to go ahead and get this thing finished up.
So right now we at 1%. That's the difference. So we could agree on that, whether we split it or they give it like the 58.42, then we could move on, have this loss behind us, right? I think, like I said, we send the 58.42 to them, and I mean,
That's what they was at the last time, when the last negotiation, wasn't it, Steve?
So I think 1% creates what, $80,000 a year for the city.
I think they were at 57.5.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what they come back to.
That's what they want.
It was at 57.43.
But if we do the 58.42, that pretty much wrap everything up and we can move on.
Now, we locked into that 58 for 10 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and if
That's why I was interested in doing the,
They locked
the
in
growth
42.
part. That's why I was interested in if we were gonna give a little, let's give a little now on the forefront to get to where we need to be on the back end.
I don't think the city's gonna be in favor of bumping up 0.5% every year or two. They're not gonna do that.
There was some discussion.
They did offer that.
Yeah, but she wanna do that to get it up to about 59.
That's what I was gonna say. There was some discussion, but ultimately, we didn't end up looking into that option because that, at the end of the discussion, it did not seem to be a discussion that either side deemed palatable to
I
move
don't think you
forward.
can do it, cause once you send the certificate to the Department of Revenue, they want it closed out, finalized right then. They don't wanna have to deal with 159 counties every year going in there and adjusting 0.5% on the loss tax.
But as far as, right now, like I say, it's just consensus right now to 58-42, you know. I think that's,
I think that's the direction that staff and the committee needed, so we'll move forward with that.
Okay.
Okay. I motion we adjourn.
Second.
You got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.